You've got exactly 3 seconds to get off my land before I lock this gate with you still inside. The clipboard hit the dirt. The man in the cheap tactical vest took a step back, hands raising like I'd just pulled a weapon. Behind him, his 2 buddies froze mid-stride, cameras dangling from their necks like tourist traps. Sir, we're authorized community inspection. I don't give a damn what you call yourself. This is private property. You're trespassing. And in Texas, that means I can detain you until the sheriff arrives. I hit the button on my gate remote. The steel barrier slid shut with a sound like a prison door slamming. Chunk. All 3 of them spun around. "What the hell are you doing?" Sunglasses shouted. "Securing the crime scene. Y'all just broke about 4 laws. Sheriffs, 20 minutes out." That's when one of them panicked and bolted toward the fence. The other 2 followed like spooked cattle. They hit an old cedar post. Snap. Wire wrapped around my 8-week-old calf's leg. Sarge screamed a sound that went straight through me like a nail through wood. I wanted to run to him, wanted to drop everything and cut that wire. But 20 years Marine Corps infantry taught me one thing. You don't tend the wounded while the enemy's still armed. So I dragged their van into my barn with my UTV, locked it, called Sheriff Daniels, and stood there listening to Sarge cry while I waited for the law to arrive. That's when I understood this wasn't about codes or inspections, this was war. My name is Jack Brennan. I'm 52 years old, and I've lived on this West Texas ranch for 15 years, ever since my wife Sarah died in the Bastrop wildfire trying to save horses while I was deployed in Kandahar. I came here to disappear, to pay penance for not being there when she needed me most. For 15 years, nobody bothered me. Then 3 days ago, a woman named Victoria Kane decided my 400 acres were suddenly hers. And yesterday, I found out why. Sheriff Daniels arrived within 20 minutes, cuffed the 3 trespassers, started writing reports, but before he could haul them off, another vehicle rolled up. Ford F, 250 Platinum, chrome gleaming, tires so clean they looked hand-polished. The driver's door opened. Out stepped a woman who looked like she'd walked off a magazine cover and into the wrong zip code. Tailored blazer, pressed slacks. Boots too new to have seen real dirt. But it wasn't the clothes that got me. It was the smile. Sharp, calculated, dangerous as a rattlesnake in tall grass. "Sheriff Daniels," she said warmly, extending a hand. "Victoria Kane. I came as soon as I heard there was confusion." Sheriff didn't shake the hand. "What are you doing here, Victoria?" "Ensuring our community partners are treated fairly." She glanced at the cuffed men, then at me. Mr. Brennan, stubborn as they said. I didn't answer. She pulled out a leather folder. Inside, official-looking documents, county seals, fancy paper, temporary jurisdiction overlay. Desert Ridge HOA has been granted emergency enforcement powers extending to this parcel. Sheriff flipped through the pages, 10 seconds, maybe less. Then he handed them back. "Victoria, these aren't legal documents. These aren't even good fakes." Her smile cracked, just a hair. "Sheriff, perhaps you don't understand the long-term planning Desert Ridge is. This land isn't in your jurisdiction, your plans, or your fantasies." She turned to me then. The mask dropped completely. "You're in the way, Mr. Brennan." I stepped forward. "So move me." She didn't flinch, just straightened her jacket. "There will be consequences." Then she drove off. Slow, smooth, certain of something only she understood. Sheriff watched her go. "Jack, that woman's trouble dressed like Sunday church." I figured. "You want me to dig? I want to know who thinks my land's up for grabs." The vet bill came that afternoon. $18,430. "Doctor, Wallace, the same vet who'd pulled calves on my father's ranch 20 years ago, gave it to me straight. Tendon damage, permanent limp. He'll never breed properly, Jack." "I'm sorry." I sat in my truck after he left, staring at that invoice. And for the first time since Sarah's funeral, I broke. Not loud, not dramatic. Just sat there with my head against the steering wheel, tears running down my face, thinking about the promise I'd made at her grave. I'll protect what matters this time. A calf with a ruined leg because some HOA wannabe thought she could bully me off my land. I wiped my eyes, took a breath, made a call. Marcus. It's Jack. Brennan. Long time. Marcus Cole, former Marine Intelligence. Best investigator I knew. Someone's trying to steal my ranch. I need your help. Silence. Then, I'll be there Friday. Marcus arrived in a black Tahoe with 3 days of stubble and a grin that said he'd been waiting for this kind of fight. We sat at my kitchen table. He dropped a folder. But before he could open it, there was a knock at my door. An old woman stood on my porch. 70s. Thin as a fence post. Eyes red from crying. Mr. Brennan? I'm Dorothy Simmons. I heard what Victoria did to you. Ma'am? She sat down without being asked, hands shaking. 3 years ago, she did the same thing to my husband, Harold. Fake jurisdiction claim, lawsuit, we couldn't afford to fight. Lost our ranch. Harold. Her voice broke. He had a heart attack 6 months later. Died thinking he'd failed me. Marcus and I exchanged looks. Mrs. Simmons, Marcus said gently, would you be willing to testify about what happened? She looked up, tears streaming. If it stops her from doing this to someone else? Yes. After she left, Marcus opened the folder. She's not the only one, Jack. I found 5 others. Same pattern. Elderly owners, veterans. People who couldn't fight back. He pulled out financial records. Victoria's shell company, Canyon View Holdings, has netted $2.1 million in 3 years from forced sales. Jesus. And here's the smoking gun. He hit play on a recorder. Victoria's voice filled my kitchen. Brennan's land is the linchpin. Get him out. The whole ridge opens up. We're talking 7 figures in finder fees. I felt my jaw tighten. There's more, Marcus said. Victoria didn't start out this way. 10 years ago, her family's real estate business went bankrupt, lost everything. Her father committed suicide. She spent 3 years rebuilding from nothing. So this is revenge? Obsession. She can't stand the thought of being powerless again. Every piece of land she controls is proof she'll never be that broken girl who lost everything. I stared at the evidence. When do we move? Monday. But Jack... He hesitated. You need to know she's going to hit back. Hard. He wasn't wrong. 2 days later, the lawsuit arrived. Kane versus Brennan. $250,000 in damages. My attorney, Raymond Cross, called that afternoon. Jack, they're claiming you unlawfully detained their team, damaged their vehicle, caused emotional distress. What are my options? Long pause. Fight it for $40,000 minimum, or settle for $75,000 and walk away. I had $35,000 in savings, everything I'd saved since retiring. If I settle, she wins. If you lose at trial, you lose everything. That night, I sat on my porch with a bottle of whiskey I'd been saving for 10 years, poured a glass, stared at it. My phone buzzed, motion alert. I grabbed my shotgun and stepped into the yard. A chunk of raw hamburger lay in the dirt. Bright blue crystals dusted on top. Rat poison. They wanted to kill my dogs. Then the burner phone I'd confiscated from the van started buzzing. I answered. Mr. Brennan, you're making this harder than it needs to be. I stared at the black SUV watching from the road. You crossed a line tonight. There's more coming if you don't cooperate. I hung up, secured the poison as evidence. But I knew the truth now. This wasn't just about land. This was about breaking me. And I wasn't sure I could survive it. Marcus showed up on Friday afternoon in a black Tahoe with dust on the tires and a grin that said he'd been waiting for this kind of fight. We'd served together in Helmand Province, 2011. He'd saved my life when an IED took out our Humvee. I'd returned the favor 6 months later during a firefight in Marja. The kind of debt you don't forget. He stepped out, same build as I remembered, 6'2", shoulders like a bull moose, jaw rough with 3 days of stubble. Brennan, he said, gripping my hand like we were back in the sandbox. You look like hell. Feel worse. We sat at my kitchen table. He dropped a thick folder between us with the weight of something that could end careers. Took me 3 days, Marcus said, but I got everything. Everything? He opened the folder. Inside, audio recordings on micro SD cards, financial spreadsheets with highlighted entries, satellite imagery, email printouts. Victoria Kane, he began, isn't just running an HOA, she's running a land acquisition scheme masked as community enforcement. He pulled out the first document, a property transaction record from 2021. Harold Simmons, 73 years old, widower, veteran, owned 280 acres bordering Desert Ridge. Victoria claimed his property violated new emergency access corridors, filed fake jurisdiction documents, forced him into a lawsuit he couldn't afford. What happened? He settled for $60,000. Property was worth $890,000. Desert Ridge bought it at auction 3 months later for $95,000. Sold it to a developer for $1.2 million 6 months after that. My jaw tightened. How many others? Marcus laid out 5 more files. Same pattern. Elderly owners, veterans, widows. People without family or resources to fight back. 6 properties total, he said. Combined value, $4.7 million. Victoria's cut through various shell companies, $2.1 million. He pulled out another document, a corporate filing for Canyon View Holdings LLC, registered agent, Michael Kane, Victoria's brother, same address as her home. Company has no employees, no office, no assets, except land purchased from Desert Ridge HOA foreclosures. Jesus, gets better. Marcus pulled out his laptop, opened an audio file. This is from a closed HOA board meeting. September 18th. I had a source plant, a recorder. He hit play. Victoria's voice filled my kitchen, smooth, confident, utterly without conscience. Brennan's land is the linchpin. We get him out, the whole ridge corridor opens up. Timberline Development is offering $3.4 million for consolidated parcels. We're talking 7 figures in finder fees alone. Another voicemail, nervous. What if he fights? He's ex-military. He's not like the others. Victoria laughed. They all fight at first, then they run out of money. Then they settle. Or we make their lives so miserable they just leave. And if he doesn't? A pause. Then we escalate. Inspections, code violations, lawsuits, anonymous complaints to every agency we can think of. We bury him in paperwork until he drowns. The recording ended. I sat there, hands flat on the table, trying to keep my breathing steady. How'd you get this? Marcus smiled grimly. I've got a guy on the inside, former HOA board member who got cold feet when Victoria started targeting veterans. He's willing to testify. Will it hold up in court? Texas is a one-party consent state for recordings. As long as one person in that room knew about it and he did, it's admissible. What else do you have? He pulled out a stack of financial records, HOA bank statements. Victoria's been siphoning funds for 3 years. $86,000 diverted to consulting fees, paid to Trier Consulting, a shell company run by her brother-in-law. Embezzlement, wire fraud, federal crime. FBI would love this. Then he unfolded a large print, a GIS map of the county. This, he said, pointing to my property, is the official county record. Your land ends here. He traced the boundary with his finger. This, he laid down, another map, is what Victoria submitted to the county in September. The boundary had been shifted, digitally altered to show my land extending into Desert Ridge territory by nearly half a mile. She forged it? She hired Stratwell Urban Group, a surveying company in Midland, to create a corrected GIS overlay, paid them $12,000. Problem is, they based it on fictional data Victoria provided. When the county clerk questioned it, Victoria bribed her. You can prove that? He pulled out email printouts. Subject line, boundary adjustment, confidential. From vkane@desertridgehoa.com to smartinez@brewstercounty.gov. Sarah. Attached is the updated parcel map for CR 89. Please process as priority. The $5,000 consulting fee we discussed will be transferred Friday. My hands curled into fists. She bought a county official, and that official, Sarah Martinez, got scared when Sheriff Daniels started asking questions. She came to me 2 days ago, gave me everything: emails, wire transfers, recorded phone calls. Why? Because Victoria threatened her. Told her if she talked, she'd be charged as an accomplice. Sarah's a single mom with 2 kids. She's terrified. Marcus leaned back. But here's the thing, Jack. Sarah's willing to testify, in exchange for immunity. Can the DA give her that? Already talked to him. He's interested. Very interested. I looked at everything spread across the table. The smoking guns, the paper trail, the evidence that could bury Victoria Kane. When do we move? Marcus grinned. Monday morning. We file a federal complaint with the FBI. Then we hold a press conference with Angela Reeves. The journalist? Yeah, she's been investigating Victoria for 2 years. Her uncle lost his ranch to this same scheme in 2021. She's been waiting for someone with enough evidence to take Victoria down. And you think we have it? Jack, we don't just have it. We have enough to put her away for a decade. For the first time in weeks, I felt the knot in my chest loosen. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a fight I was going to lose. But that night, at 2:17 a.m., everything changed. I was at the kitchen table, reviewing Marcus's evidence for the 100th time, when Duke and Ranger both lifted their heads simultaneously. Not barking, just alert. Bodies stiff, eyes locked on the front door. I set down my coffee and moved to the window, pulled the curtain back an inch. A black SUV sat off the road about 200 yards out. No headlights, no movement, just watching. I grabbed my shotgun and stepped onto the porch. That's when I saw it, lying in the dirt just inside my fence line. A chunk of raw hamburger. Still pink, still wet. A rock sat on top to keep it from rolling. I knelt down, brought my flashlight closer. Bright blue crystals dusted across the meat like seasoning. Rat poison, industrial grade, the kind that kills in minutes. My blood went cold. They wanted to kill my dogs. I stood slowly, eyes never leaving the SUV.
That's when the phone in my pocket started buzzing. Not my phone, the burner I'd confiscated from the van that morning. I pulled it out, screen glowing. Incoming call, unknown. I answered.
A man's voice came through. Smooth, educated, utterly without empathy. Mr. Brennan, you're making this harder than it needs to be. I didn't respond, just stared at the SUV. We gave you an opportunity to settle. You refused. That was unwise. Who is this? A soft chuckle. Someone who's trying to help you avoid further unpleasantness. Unpleasantness like poisoning my dogs? Pause. That was a warning. The next one won't be. Listen to me very carefully, I said, voice dropping to something cold and flat. You come onto my land again, you threaten what's mine again, and I promise you there won't be a trial. There won't be lawyers. There'll just be a hole in the ground nobody's gonna find. Silence. Then you really think you can win this? Victoria has resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, connections, money. You're a broke veteran living alone on a dying ranch. This ends one way. You lose everything. We'll see. We will. And Mr. Brennan, watch your back. Accidents happen out here all the time. The call ended. The SUV's lights turned off. Engine started. It backed away slowly, disappearing into the darkness. I stood there for a long time, poisoned meat at my feet, shotgun in my hands. They'd crossed a line, and now, so would I. The next morning, I called Sheriff Daniels and handed over the poison as evidence. He took one look at it and his jaw set like concrete. Jack, this is attempted animal cruelty. Maybe attempted assault if they thought you'd touch it. I'm opening a criminal investigation. Good. But I gotta warn you, if Victoria's behind this, proving it's gonna be damn near impossible. Then we don't prove it, we just make sure everyone knows. He understood. By noon, Angela Reeves had published her first story. HOA president accused of land fraud scheme. Victims include decorated veterans. The article detailed everything: the forged maps, the embezzled funds, the pattern of targeting vulnerable landowners. And buried in paragraph 12, in a disturbing escalation, sources report that rat poison was discovered on Brennan's property early Thursday morning, suggesting an attempt to harm livestock or pets. My phone exploded. Old Marine buddies from across the country calling to offer support. Local ranchers I hadn't spoken to in years checking if I needed help. A veterans advocacy group out of San Antonio reaching out to offer free legal assistance. Victoria had made a critical mistake. She'd picked a fight with someone who had a tribe, and that tribe was circling the wagons. 2 days later, the lawsuit arrived. Kane versus Brennan. Civil complaint. I sat in Raymond Cross's office, reading through the 9 pages of legal jargon. "They're claiming you unlawfully detained their inspection team," Raymond said. "Threatened them with a weapon, damaged their vehicle by dragging it with your UTV, and caused emotional distress." Emotional distress? All 3 of them claim PTSD from the incident. I laughed. Couldn't help it. They broke onto my land at 5 a.m., injured my livestock. And they have PTSD? Welcome to civil court, Jack. Truth is optional. Damages are negotiable. What are they asking for? $250,000. The number hit me like a freight train. I don't have that kind of money. I know, which is why they're betting you'll settle. For how much? They've offered $75,000. You drop all charges against the 3 men. Sign an NDA. Walk away. I looked out the window at the parking lot. Pickups and sedans. Normal people living normal lives. I'd give anything to go back to normal. If I settle, I said quietly, she wins. And she'll do this to someone else. Raymond leaned forward. Jack, I need you to understand what you're facing. Victoria has a team of lawyers from a firm in Austin. They bill $600 an hour. They'll drag this out for years. Depositions. Motions. Discovery. Every step designed to bleed you dry. How much to fight it? Conservatively, $40,000 to get through trial. Maybe more if they appeal. I had $35,000 in savings, everything I'd saved since retiring from the Corps. And if I lose, you'll owe the $250,000 judgment. They'll put a lien on your property, force a sale. I'd lose the ranch. Yes. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Sarah's face flashed through my mind. The promise I'd made at her grave. I'll protect what matters this time. Ray, I'm not settling. Jack, I'm not settling. Whatever it costs. However long it takes. I'm fighting this. He sighed. Then, we'd better win. The next 3 weeks were hell. Depositions, document requests, interrogatories. Victoria's lawyers filed motion after motion. Motion to compel production of my military medical records. Motion to compel psychiatric evaluation. Motion to exclude Marcus's evidence as illegally obtained. Motion to exclude Sheriff Daniels' testimony as biased. Every motion cost money. Every response required hours of Raymond's time. My savings account dropped from $35,000 to $28,000 to $22,000. I stopped eating out, stopped driving to town unless absolutely necessary, started cutting my own hair. Marcus worked for free, so did Angela. But Raymond couldn't, he had his own bills to pay. Jack, he told me after one particularly brutal deposition, you're bleeding money. We need to talk about settlement again. No, you're down to $18,000 in savings. We haven't even started trial prep yet. I'll figure it out. I didn't have an answer. That night, I sat on my porch with a bottle of whiskey I'd been saving for 10 years, poured a glass, stared at it. This was supposed to be my sanctuary, my escape, my second chance at doing things right. Instead, I was being systematically destroyed by a woman in a red blazer who saw my land as nothing more than a line item on a spreadsheet. I lifted the glass to my lips. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mr. Brennan? Yeah. This is Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Morrison. I served with your wife at Fort Hood. I sat up straight. Colonel Morrison, I remember. I just read Angela Reeves's article about what you're going through. I want you to know, you're not alone in this fight. Ma'am, I've made some calls. There are 15 veterans from Sarah's unit who want to help. We're pooling resources, legal fund, security, whatever you need. My throat tightened. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Jack. Sarah saved my life in Ramadi, pulled me out of a burning vehicle. I owe her. We all do. And we're not letting some HOA con artist take away what she loved. After we hung up, I sat there in the dark, tears running down my face. For the first time since this nightmare started, I wasn't alone. 3 days before trial, Victoria's lawyers filed their kill shot. Emergency motion to suppress evidence. They were targeting Marcus's audio recordings. The hearing was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Friday. Raymond looked worried when we met outside the courtroom. Jack, if they suppress those recordings, we're in serious trouble. That's our smoking gun. What are the chances? 50 to 50. Judge Morrison is fair, but she's also a stickler for procedure. If Victoria's team can argue the recordings were obtained illegally. We walked into the courtroom. Victoria sat at the defense table. Perfect posture, perfect makeup. And there it was, the crimson-red blazer, fitted tight over a black silk blouse. Red pencil skirt, glossy red heels, auburn hair styled in waves, red lips curved into a smile that said she'd already won. She didn't look at me, didn't need to. Her lawyer, Harrison Price, stood when the judge entered. Your Honor, the recordings submitted by the plaintiff were obtained through illegal surveillance of a private HOA meeting. Texas Penal Code 16.02 prohibits recording conversations without all-party consent in certain circumstances. These recordings violate that statute and must be excluded. Raymond stood. Your Honor, Texas is a one-party consent state. One participant in that meeting authorized the recording. That makes it legal. Harrison smirked. The alleged participant, Mr. Dennis Walsh, was not a board member. He attended as a guest. He had no authority to consent on behalf of the board. Judge Morrison frowned. Mr. Cross, is that true? Raymond hesitated. Your Honor, Mr. Walsh was invited to attend as a guest, not as a voting member, not as an official participant. The judge reviewed her notes. Mr. Cross, I'm troubled by this. If Mr. Walsh wasn't an official participant, his consent may not satisfy the statute. My stomach dropped. Raymond tried to salvage it. Your Honor, the meeting discussed matters of public concern, land acquisition, use of HOA funds. That doesn't change the consent requirement. Silence. Then Judge Morrison said the words that nearly killed me. The motion is granted. The recordings are inadmissible. The courtroom spun. Our smoking gun, gone. Harrison Price smiled. Your Honor, given this ruling, we renew our motion to dismiss the plaintiff's claims entirely. Denied, Judge Morrison said sharply. But Mr. Cross, you'd better have other evidence, because right now, your case is on life support. Outside the courtroom, Raymond pulled me aside. Jack, we need to talk settlement. Now. No, you don't have a choice. Without those recordings, we can't prove Victoria knew the maps were forged. We can't prove she orchestrated the harassment. It becomes he said, she said, and she's got 3 witnesses who will testify you detained them. What about Sarah Martinez, the county clerk? Her testimony helps, but Victoria's team will argue she acted independently, that Victoria was misled by staff. Marcus's financial records? Circumstantial. Shows embezzlement, but doesn't directly link to your case. I sat on the courthouse steps, head in my hands. What's the settlement offer now? Raymond pulled out his phone. Read from an email. $85,000. You drop all claims. Sign an NDA. Vacate the property within 90 days. Vacate? She wants you gone, Jack. Completely. I'd spent $22,000 fighting this. I'd lose my savings, my land, and my home. Everything. Sarah's grave flashed through my mind. The promise I'd made. I'll protect what matters this time. No, I whispered. Jack. I said no. We go to trial. Whatever happens, happens. Raymond stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, then we'd better find a miracle. The miracle arrived at 11:47 p.m. that night. I was sitting at my kitchen table staring at foreclosure projections when my phone rang. Jack Brennan? Yeah, this is Special Agent Lisa Chen, FBI. I've been reviewing the evidence Marcus Cole provided regarding Victoria Kane. I sat up straight. And we've opened a federal investigation into wire fraud and RICO violations. I can't discuss details, but I want you to know, you're not fighting this alone anymore. What does that mean for my trial? It means I'll be testifying as a witness. Your trial starts Monday? Yes. Then I'll be there. After she hung up, I sat there in the dark, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Real, genuine hope. Monday morning, the trial began. The trial started on a cold Monday morning in November 2024. The Brewster County Courthouse rose from the desert like a monument to the idea that justice still meant something out here in West Texas. I arrived early, 6:30 a.m., before the lawyers, before the press, before the spectators who'd started lining up outside. Raymond met me at the side entrance. You ready? He asked. I thought about Sarah, about Sarge, about every veteran who'd lost their land to people like Victoria. Born ready, the courtroom filled fast. Ranchers in clean, Wranglers in pressed shirts, veterans in dress blues and garrison caps, Angela Reeves in the press section, notepad ready, and Victoria Kane. She sat at the defense table in that crimson-red blazer fitted perfectly over a black silk blouse cut just low enough to distract. Red pencil skirt, glossy red heels clicking on the tile when she walked, auburn hair in perfect waves, red lips curved into a smile that said she owned this room. She didn't look at me, didn't need to. Her entire posture screamed confidence. Judge Elizabeth Hartman entered. Former prosecutor, 20 years on the bench, known for two things, hating liars and loving veterans. All rise. We stood. Judge Hartman took her seat, adjusted her glasses, and surveyed the packed courtroom. This is a civil trial, she began, but I'm aware there are criminal investigations pending. I will not tolerate grandstanding, theatrics, or attempts to try this case in the media. Am I clear? Both sides nodded. Mr. Cross, you may call your first witness. Raymond stood. Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Jack Brennan. I walked to the stand, took the oath, Saturday. Raymond led me through the story methodically. The fake inspection team, the broken fence, Sarge's injury, the vet bill for $18,430, the poisoned meat, the threatening phone call, the lawsuit designed to bankrupt me. When I described finding Sarge tangled in barbed wire, crying in pain, I had to stop and collect myself. Mr. Brennan, Raymond said gently. What went through your mind at that moment? I looked at Victoria. She met my eyes without flinching. I thought about my wife, I said quietly. Sarah, she died trying to save animals during a wildfire while I was deployed. And here I was, 15 years later, watching another innocent creature suffer because of someone's greed. Victoria's lawyer, Harrison Price, shot to his feet. Objection. Irrelevant emotional appeal. Overruled, Judge Hartman said sharply. The witness may answer, Raymond continued. What did you do after securing the trespassers? I called Sheriff Daniels, preserved evidence, secured the scene like I was trained to do in the Marine Corps. Did you threaten anyone? No. Did you brandish a weapon? I had my sidearm on my belt. I never drew it. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Harrison Price approached for cross-examination. Expensive suit, practiced smile. Mr. Brennan, you're a combat veteran, correct? Yes. With documented PTSD? Objection, Raymond said. Medical records are sealed. Your Honor, Harrison said smoothly, the defendant has raised Mr. Brennan's mental state as relevant to his actions that morning. Judge Hartman frowned. I'll allow limited questioning, but tread carefully, counselor. Harrison turned back to me. Mr. Brennan, isn't it true that you've been treated for combat-related stress? I've had counseling, like most veterans. And isn't it possible that you overreacted to a routine inspection? That your military training kicked in and you saw threats where none existed? My jaw tightened. No. You locked 3 unarmed men in your barn. I detained 3 trespassers who injured my livestock. You refused to let them leave. I secured evidence until law enforcement arrived. Harrison smiled. Or you held them prisoner because you were having a PTSD episode. Objection! Raymond was on his feet. Counsel is testifying. Sustained. Mr. Price, ask questions. Don't make accusations. But the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. When I stepped down, Raymond leaned over. Don't worry. We've got this. But I could see the worry in his eyes. The next witness was Sheriff Daniels. He took the stand in full uniform, badge gleaming. Raymond walked him through the timeline. The 911 call. The arrival. The 3 men caught red-handed on private property. Sheriff, in your professional opinion, did Mr. Brennan act appropriately? Absolutely. He detained trespassers and called law enforcement. Exactly what he should have done. Did he threaten anyone? Not that I observed. Did you find evidence of criminal trespass? Yes. The 3 men had no legal authority to be on that property. They presented forged documents claiming HOA jurisdiction. Harrison Price stood for Cross. Sheriff, isn't it true you and Mr. Price and Brennan have a personal relationship? We're acquaintances. You've known each other for 15 years? About that, so you're biased in his favor. Sheriff's eyes hardened. I'm biased toward the truth, counselor. And the truth is, those 3 men broke the law. Move to strike, Harrison said. Non-responsive. Denied, Judge Hartman said. The witness answered the question. Sheriff Daniels stepped down, and I saw Victoria lean over to whisper something to Harrison. He nodded, made a note. They were worried. Raymond called Marcus next. He walked to the stand in jeans and a leather jacket, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. But when he sat down, his voice was steady. Mr. Cole, what is your profession? Private investigator, specializing in fraud and corporate misconduct. How do you know Mr. Brennan? We served together, Marines, 2011. And did Mr. Brennan hire you to investigate Victoria Kane? Yes. What did you find? Marcus pulled out his folder. I found a systematic pattern of fraud targeting elderly and veteran landowners, 6 properties over 3 years, combined value of $4.7 million. Miss Kane's profit through shell companies, $2.1 million. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Raymond introduced the evidence, financial records, property transfers, corporate filings. Then he played the audio. Victoria's voice filled the courtroom. Brennan's land is the linchpin. We get him out, the whole ridge corridor opens up. The gallery erupted. Judge Hartman slammed her gavel. Order! Harrison Price shot to his feet. Your Honor, that recording was ruled inadmissible. That was a different recording, Raymond said calmly. This one was obtained by Special Agent Lisa Chen of the FBI during their federal investigation. It's not subject to the previous ruling. Harrison's face went pale. I wasn't informed of, because it's federal evidence, Counselor, filed this morning under seal. Judge Hartman reviewed the motion. I'll allow it. The recording continued. We're talking 7 figures in finder fees? If he won't cooperate, we bury him in paperwork until he drowns. Victoria's mask finally cracked. Just a flicker, but I saw it. Fear. Then Raymond called his final witness. Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Special Agent Lisa Chen, Federal Bureau of Investigation. A woman in a dark suit walked to the stand, badge on her belt, hair pulled back, eyes sharp as razors. She took the oath. Agent Chen, how long have you been investigating Victoria Kane? 8 months. What have you found? Wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit real estate fraud, bribery of public officials. The courtroom went silent. Can you elaborate? Agent Chen pulled out a thick file. Miss, Kane established multiple shell companies to funnel HOA funds and proceeds from forced property sales. She bribed at least 2 county officials to facilitate forged GIS maps. She coordinated with a surveying company to falsify boundary data. Do you have evidence of this? Yes. Email correspondence, bank records, recorded phone calls, testimony from co-conspirators who've agreed to cooperate. Raymond turned to Victoria. Agent Chen, is Victoria Kane currently under federal indictment? Not yet, but the grand jury convenes next week. Victoria stood abruptly. Your Honor, I object. Miss Kane, Judge Hartman said coldly, you are not an attorney. Sit down. Victoria sat, but her hands were shaking. Harrison Price tried to salvage it on cross-examination. Agent Chen, you haven't actually filed charges yet, correct? The investigation is ongoing, so everything you've said is speculative. No, it's based on documentary evidence and witness testimony, but you can't prove Miss Kane knew about any alleged fraud. Agent Chen smiled, thin, sharp. Actually, we have her signature on multiple fraudulent documents. We have her voice on recorded calls coordinating the fraud. And we have her brother-in-law prepared to testify that she directed the entire operation. Harrison sat down. He had nothing left. Judge Hartman called a recess. In the hallway, Raymond grabbed my arm. Jack, we just won. It's not over yet. It's over. Trust me. When we returned, Judge Hartman looked at both sides. I've reviewed the evidence. I'm prepared to rule. Harrison stood. Your Honor, we'd like to request a continuance to denied. Sit down. He sat. Judge Hartman turned to Victoria. Miss Kane, I've been on this bench for 20 years. I've seen fraud. I've seen corruption. But I've never seen someone so brazen as to weaponize an HOA against veterans and elderly landowners for personal profit. Victoria's red lips parted. No words came out. The evidence presented here today proves beyond any reasonable doubt that you orchestrated a scheme to steal Mr. Brennan's property through forged documents, bribery, and intimidation. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Judge Hartman's voice could have cut steel. You filed a frivolous lawsuit designed to bankrupt him. You sent trespassers onto his land. You injured his livestock. And based on Agent Chen's testimony, you may have attempted to poison his animals. Victoria's face went white. Therefore, I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. The defendant's lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. Further, I am awarding Mr. Brennan damages in the amount of $340,000. The gallery erupted in cheers. Additionally, Judge Hartman continued, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Bailiff, take Miss Kane into custody pending arraignment. 2 deputies moved forward. Victoria stood. Your Honor, this is a mistake. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, the deputy said, pulling out handcuffs. As they cuffed her, Victoria looked at me one last time, not with anger, not with defiance, with shock. Pure, unfiltered shock. The predator had finally realized she was the prey. 6 months later, May 2025, I stood on my porch watching the sunset, coffee in hand. Victoria Kane had been sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Wire fraud, conspiracy, bribery. The Desert Ridge HOA dissolved. Every victim got restitution. I got my $340,000, paid off legal bills, fixed the fences, rebuilt what they'd broken. Sarge was grazing nearby. Still limped, always would. But he was alive. My phone rang. Marcus, you watching? Yeah. Appeal denied. She's done. I smiled. Good. After we hung up, I walked out to Sarge, rested my hand on his neck. We won, boy. The sun set over the ridge, painting everything gold. For the first time since Sarah died, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. The red blazer. Throughout the trial, Victoria Kane wore the same outfit every single day. That crimson red blazer, fitted tight, worn open over the black silk V-neck blouse. The red pencil skirt with its subtle slit. Those glossy red heels clicking on the courthouse tile. Her auburn hair styled perfectly in waves, even after nights in detention. Red lips. Always red. The prosecutor joked she was trying to look powerful, but I knew better. The red wasn't power. It was armor. A costume for someone who'd lost everything once and spent years clawing it back through lies. On sentencing day, she wore that blazer one last time. When the judge said 8 years, the red didn't look powerful anymore. It looked like blood in the water. As they led her away, those red heels clicking one final time, I thought about something Marcus had said. People who dress for war every day forget they're wearing costumes. Victoria Kane wore red like armor, but armor doesn't stop the truth. And in the end, truth hit her like a bullet she never saw coming. The red blazer became a symbol. Newspapers ran photos. The HOA queen in crimson, one headline read. But, to me, it was just fabric. What mattered was the land beneath my boots, the coffee in my hand, the quiet that finally belonged to me. I never saw Victoria Kane again, but sometimes, late at night, I think about that red blazer, about how she wore it every day like a shield, about how it couldn't protect her from the consequences of her own greed. And I pour another cup of coffee, step onto my porch, and remember, out here in West Texas, the land doesn't care what color you wear. It only cares if you're honest. And Victoria Kane never was. The end.